Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Stephen Epstein here with this week's 10-Minute Torah, Rashbi in the house. And hope you had a great week, and hope you're looking forward to the Sabbath. So we want to say congratulations and mazel tov to David Wallace for such a great job at your bar mitzvah this past weekend. Great job, Rabbi Joshua Ginsburg Margot, for training him, and wonderful. And what's really wonderful, what's really a blessing for our synagogue is when someone like David, who just finished his bar mitzvah, and someone like John Paul Cohn, who comes with his family almost every Saturday, to participate in Saturday morning services. Both of them teenagers, both of them really recently bar mitzvah, or having had their bar mitzvah, and now they want to get involved. They want to be gabbis. Gabbai is somebody who stands on either side of the podium, while the Baal Kriya, the person reading the Torah, doesn't necessarily have to be the rabbi who's reading the Torah. And of course, they're making sure that each word is absolutely spot on and correct. Now, this is their job. Now, people say, well, it's not polite to correct, a sage or a rabbi or somebody. But you know what? In this case, have at it. Because it's important, it's more important for the congregation to hear the words directly from the Torah, as meant, as written, so they can get the meaning, rather than somebody, well, you didn't do it right, you made this mistake. It doesn't matter. Not an issue. We all make mistakes. You go through the Art Scroll prayer book, and there are different things we say for prayers during different times of the year, and there's always a way, just in case you said the wrong thing. Now, when you're davening every day, what is the Amidah, the Tefillah, that standing silent prayer that we say. And there are times during the year when, things change, and sometimes you're have the habit of saying something, you forgot to say this other thing. There's always a way to correct it. And sometimes it doesn't need to be corrected. It depends. But see, it's the whole idea of teshuvah, to return. Okay, so enough of that. Let's get to this week's portion, Ki Tisa, because there's so many things in there. First of all, at first blush, when you look at a chumash and you look at this week's portion, you will see different places in that particular portion where it says that this is the end of this aliyah, this is the beginning, this is the end of that aliyah, etc. So basically, as we know, the portion is divided into actually 8 different aliyot. So we're calling up 7 people, to witness, and then there's the maftir, which is the 8th aliyah, the last 3 or 4 verses that, that's read by someone, or is witnessed by someone who's going to read the haftarah, the portion from the prophets, the lesson from the prophets that enhance or validate what was said in the portion. And, years ago when they set apart, and I believe it was Maimonides that designated the different portions, divided up the Torah for the yearly reading, what they did was they divided each particular portion into those different aliyot. And sometimes there are it's not always the same amount of verses. In this particular, the reason I mention this is because in this particular case, the 2 first aliyot, and the first one is for the Kohen, honoring the priests, the second one is for the Levites, honoring the ministers, are very long. Between the 2 of them, that's almost half the portion. Why is that? The first portion, the first aliyah for the Kohanim, talks about, that each adult male, 20 years to actually 50 years, is to give a half shekel for the upkeep of the synagogue, but it also says, or the temple, I'm sorry, modern age. So the upkeep of the temple, of the tabernacle, the building and the upkeep of the tabernacle, and it's for HaKippurim, for their atonement. Now, what are they atoning? These are people that may go out to battle. And if they go to battle, if they have to have a war, they may end up killing people. That's part of war. It's one of the things we, want to avoid. That's why we don't want to do war, okay? But, part of war is killing somebody. So that half shekel is their atonement. The next part of it talks about the labor, the bowl, the big washing basin with the little spouts where the Kohanim go in before they go into the tabernacle, and they wash their hands and their feet. And this isn't necessarily hygiene, it's actually a spiritual cleansing. We do the same thing when we're eating bread. Before we eat bread, we say, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 for the water, and then we say the motzi blessing for the bread, because it's the staff of life. So, and it talks about that, goes on for a little bit. The next aliyah is the golden calf, the Egel HaMesechet. It's the golden calf. Now, and this is a very long portion because a lot happens here. So here's Moses up on Mount Sinai getting the Ten Commandments. He comes down, and what greets him? An idol, a calf made of gold. Now, let's take a step back. What are you thinking? You're thinking, well, wait a minute. Didn't that happen like 3 or 4 or 5 portions back with Jethro? He talked about allocating, the adjudication. So Moses is not judging everybody. He's got people that can judge the lesser cases. Then he goes up to Mount Sinai, and then they come down, and they talk about building the tabernacle. They talk about what the priests are going to wear, the different things that are going to go into the tabernacle. All of a sudden, here he is back on Mount Sinai, coming down with the original 10 Commandments. The moral of the story, folks, is that, of course, and we've said this before, the Torah is not necessarily a chronological history. What it is, it's the history or the development of Judaism. So it skips around. Some people say that, Moses didn't, oh, here's Jethro. Oh, hi, how you doing? Here's your family. Hey, I'll catch you later. I got to go climb a mountain. Jethro may have been there for some sages say he was there for 8 months, 7 months, hanging out with him before Moses went up to Mount Sinai. So again, because it was important that he brings the commandments down, talks about some other commandments, talks about, establishing the tabernacle and the priestly people. I don't want to say caste because then we're talking about designations, but the priests and the ministers and what's going in the tabernacle, what they're going to wear. And now we return to the story, okay? Because this was important. This was the flow. All this happened. We had the 10 Commandments. We had some important commandments about treating the most vulnerable people in life. We talked about building the tabernacle. We talked about who's going to administer. We talked about the things that go in with which the instruments with which they will going to minister. And now we return to the part where after all this was going to happen, bam, these people that saw the clouds, the cloud that protected them during the day, the fire that kept them out at night, that led them during the night, the manna that was coming down, the meat that came in. And what are these people going to do? How are they going to react? They're building a calf, a golden idol. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. It was not an idol as you might think it's an idol, okay? So first of all, this wasn't a replacement for God. This was a replacement for Moses. The people were concerned. Moses said, I'm going up there. I'll be back in 40 days. Now, when he said 40 days, he wasn't including the day it took him to go up the mountain. It was 40 days from there. So they're like, it's, where is he? It's been 40 days. Where is he? It's actually been 39. They couldn't wait another day. So they're starting to freak out. And some of the rabble from Egypt, the people that came, the criminals and people that used the whole Exodus as an excuse to join, the Israelites, came and said, oh, we need it, because that's what they were used to. That was their religion. They were pagan religion. We need a God. And what did they worship? They worshipped animals. They worshiped calves. That's why the Israelites, when they first came to Egypt with Jacob, they had to go to Goshen so the Egyptians wouldn't see these people shepherding around people that they thought, or beings that they thought were gods, right? So Aaron is trying to buy time because they talk about this guy Hur that was with Caleb. He was one of the leaders. And when the people initially wanted to do that, Hur resisted. Tradition says, even though it's not mentioned in the Torah, the people killed him. And Aaron thought, oh my gosh, I have to buy time. Plus, Aaron was kind of a peacemaker. He knew Moses was going to be back any time, but he wanted to stall for time. So he said, oh, okay, give me all your gold and we'll fashion something, thinking these people aren't going to release their gold. But to his surprise, bam, there's this pile of gold. So he fashions this calf and says, this is what led you. This calf is what will lead you into the promised land. Not God, not Hashem, but this is a replacement for Moses. Just like the rabble of Egypt, they said, and here's the quote out of the Torah, this is your God, O Israel, God with a small g, Elohim. Not necessarily the God, capital G, the dash, so we don't take God's name in vain. This is your God. This is your, what's going to lead you through. So he was buying time. And he wasn't saying this is God. This is your representative. Moses, of course, comes down from the mountain, takes the tablets, throws them down on the ground. Now, was Moses in a rage? Yeah, he was angry. Of course he was. But what he was basically saying is, see, this is what God gave you. This is what you did. Bam. There it is. So Moses then, so then the Levites came. They made short work of all the people that led the rebellion. And Moses goes up there again, and Moses and God's like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of these people. I'm going to make you a great nation. And Moses pleads with him, just like Abraham did about Sodom and Gomorrah. Moses says, look, if you destroy these people, the whole world is going to say that, God brought these people out of Egypt to kill them, so let them live. Give me another chance to do it. And God said, okay, now it's on you. So now think about this. Moses, who is kind of a reluctant prophet at the beginning, now has owned his role as a prophet, as a representative, not intermediary, because remember, there is no one that comes between you and Hashem. It is a direct relationship, but like with reading the Torah, some people aren't as educated as other people, so sometimes we need an intermediary to interpret. So thank you for listening. I could go on for another 20 minutes with this portion. It was really interesting. See you in services. John Paul and David, looking forward to you two helping me. Gabby, Bob, we still need you. Bob Kaplan, okay, you've been doing a great job. Still need you there to mentor. And Shabbat Shalom. And don't forget, Shabbat Across America, March 1st. 6 o'clock potluck, dairy potluck, so we can keep it pretty kosher. And then the service, the explanatory service at 7. Shabbat Across America, March 1st. Be there. As I used to say, aloha. Or Yitzhak.